Hello y'all on YouTube, this is Rob with Rob's Dirty Knives. Today we have a very interesting knife that was lent to me in the pass around and that I was very excited to get a chance to check out. It is a smaller version of another knife that you may be familiar with. This comes in from Giant Mouse Knives, and this is a knife that's called the Atelier. Atelier, I believe it's called. Atelier. And the name of the knife, well, let's see here. The designer of this particular knife, is it Onzo on this one too? I can't see if it was. Does it say? It doesn't say on here. I was looking at Giant Mouse's website to see who's the actual designer of this knife. It doesn't tell me. That's a bummer. So I'm sure that might have been noted somewhere else, but it's the smaller version of the, what is it called? The Giant, the Ace Grand, okay? So if you have thought the Ace Grand was a cool knife, but it was just too big, and I think the Ace Grand would probably fit my hand much better, you might want to check this out. This is a smaller version. Now, I will tell you, it's done well, but it's too small for me. But that doesn't mean that I can't recommend it, because I think there's some good things about this. So let's talk about it. See if this becomes ultimately a recommended knife for me. Again, this is made by Giant Mouse. It's made in Italy as well. This is titanium scaled. Now notice this does have some texture on there. You can see the little fine lines. It does have a deep pocket carry clip, which is a wired carry clip. My favorite kind, with that single loop like that. That's the most solid one. And it is reversible for left and right hand tip up carry, which I think is fantastic. It does have a brass bar back insert, back spacer, and it does have a lanyard loop, but it's not prioritized, so it's great if you like lanyards. Pretty good blade to scale utilization. Nice kind of a thick blade. It's got that beautiful crown spine on there that they like to do, especially in Italy, and that's kind of a thing that you get from there. I love the hardware. It all seems to match. Let's see. Is that... that might be a titanium screw. So it might be titanium hardware. It's a steel clip, and obviously the blade is steel, but and the blade here is made out of Elmax. You can see that Elmax blade steel. Beautiful sand polished. Like I said, crown spine. It's got a nice swedge on top. I love the shape of the blade. The blade is really cool. I will tell you, the look of this blade, the shape of this blade is nice. I do dig that. I dig that profile is really, really stinking cool. All right. So now there's no really relief cutaway, and there's no relief cutaway in here. Just no cutout. And so for me, big meaty fingers, that's a deal killer, right? But here's the thing. This is not made for, I think it's made for smaller hands, smaller people. And so I'm willing to overlook that, because I haven't had a chance to check out the Grand, and I'm assuming the Grand has better cutaway axes. And if it doesn't, then, you know, take that with a grain of salt. It does stick out a little bit, but it's just not enough for me to comfortably get to it. I can get to it, but it's work. And after a while, if you fidget with this, your finger gets really, really tired here. And I did notice that. So, you know, it's not a fidgety, super wonderful little thing. If you got thinner, you know, skinnier fingers, you might be okay for you. I didn't care for that. I think there should have been some cutaway here, a little chamfering, something to get a little better access to that liner lock. It looks like it's an inset liner lock on the scales themselves. Actually, it might be a full liner on there. Yeah, and it looks like the scales lay over it. Is this? Yeah, so this is a solid block of titanium. There's no weight relief, which does give it some weight, which is interesting. Nice robust blade, I think, which is cool. Nicely sharpened, definitely. You can notice this is much shorter edge than this edge, so it's not evenly sharpened, and that does make it look weird when you close it, so it looks like it's off-centered. I will tell you that it's nicely locks up at a good 20%, 25%. No blade play in there, solid. No pivot lash. It does click into the detent. You can hear that. Nice clicky. No detent lash, so that's good. And typical with Giant Mouse, they've got those little corners. They always like to put the corners back there. And I don't know why they do that. It's always a killer for me, right? I always want to believe in them, but then they have these little corners, and those corners, after a while, some of those corners can get really sharp, especially with their lanyards that stick out. They dig in, and I get blisters, and so after a while, you know, or makes my skin just kind of raw there, makes me just say, you know, I'm done. And I've had two Giant Mouse that I've owned, and I sold both of them because of that. They just didn't work. It's a cool knife. I like a lot of things about it, and I think the larger version would be cooler, but again, I would have to see how it fits in hand and everything. Now, I will tell you, I have large hands, so notice I'm at the edge. I'm using that little back part there. I'm almost over. Extra large hands, you're going to be 3.5 fingers, right? You could choke up. You could choke up there. Now, I wouldn't choke all the way up there, but you could definitely choke up with that flat part, and you can use the jimping. There's a little jimping up there, so you definitely can do like a push cut like that, and it does give you a little extra room for extra large, double extra large hands, but I don't know if that's your natural grip where you want to go. If you want to go naturally there to get behind for certain cuts, if you have larger hands, it's going to slip off. So just keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. I like the LMAX. I like the set and finish. I like the steel, the titanium scales, the steel inside. I wish it was a little weight relief. The lockup is good. It's a steel liner, so you don't have to have a steel bar insert or anything like that. I like the wire clip. This is a functional wire clip. I think, I'm guessing, probably the Spyderco wire clip thing could replace it. Wish that wasn't sharp. I mean, it's definitely rounded perfectly here, but see that, all that, bring that over here, especially in the corners. For someone like me, after a while, it just digs in, right? That's, if I'm doing a lot of work over and over and over, and that's digging in, after a while, that gets raw. So, just my thing. If it doesn't bother you, you got smaller hands, or you're never going to be in that position, then don't worry about it. But it's just one of those things. I look for the ergonomics, right? I call it a collection killer kind of thing. There are little things that can destroy a knife from staying in a collection. It can be really great. You can enjoy it as you have in the collection. It's wonderful. But then after a while, that one thing, I had a knife that I could never flip left-handed. And every time I did it, I'd cut my finger or something. And then the other one is when I'm dropping it. If it's so close and I could never get it, and then it flips and it cuts me regularly, and it's always getting me, it's always, that's a collection killer. If I can't get to the liner lock or the frame lock because there's no cutaway, that's a collection killer to me. So, you know, those are things that do bother me. I will tell you that much. But having handled it, it's a great, well-made knife. So if you're willing to overlook some of those things, or those things aren't important to you, take everything what I'm saying here with a grain of salt. And remember, if those are things that you're like, yeah, that doesn't bother me, then you don't worry about it, right? But these are things that bother me. And if any of those things bother you, then, you know, I'm just trying to give you a heads up, right? I don't want you to go get this knife and then be like, man, I wish I had known about this. I'm sharing with you what I've noticed and what I think, you know, people might want to know about, right? And also things that if they were to revise this knife, if they were to do something different, there's a couple of small things I would love to see them do. T8s, right? That would be cool. These little corners, soften them up. That would be really cool. This thumb hole here, make it, I mean, it's okay this size. It might be nice a little bit bigger. I can get past all of that. I guess I notice it more because everything else. Do a cutaway, do a little chamfering right here so I can get access to that liner lock. Please let me have a little access. Maybe have that go either, or do that false faux kind of a liner lock where it pops up a little bit higher. If you're not going to cut away there, at least to have that part come up. So cut these liners where it comes up, and then that where the jimping is, have that come up a little bit, right? Have it come up so it sticks out, so it's easy to access and push. So I can push that. My fingers doesn't get caught there. That would be really nice, you know? So just my thing. Otherwise, I think, you know, there's a lot of little neat things about that. All right, so the closing, it does have cage bearings. It's pretty nice. I think this would be one that I could tune. It can get really smooth and have nice drop shutty action. I think it would work well, right? The opening with the flipper is pretty good. I think the other things bother me, so I'm not enjoying that as much. But I think if I had the Grand, maybe that would be different, right? So maybe one of these days I'll get a chance to check out that. All right, so let's do some measurements on this. Let's weigh this guy and see how much they weigh, okay? I'm gonna guess this is about 4 1/4. I don't know, let's see. 4.2, 4.3, so it's right at that. It's right at almost 4 1/4, so there you go. All right, 4.2 ounces. That's very interesting. Okay. So let's do the measurements. It is a smaller knife. I will tell you that up front. So we're looking at a knife that is just shy of 7 inches. We're about 6.9 inches, right? The overall grip length that you have here is about 3 1/4 to 3 1/3. If you do choke up a little bit, you can get about 3 3/4. It's not going to be a huge knife for big hands, right? Overall blade length from the back to the very tip, it's just under 3 inches if you go to the top of the scale. The actual cutting length you're looking at is about 2 7/8 of an inch. I think, yeah, I can get to that, to the blade stock thickness. So let's take a look at that. So we're at 140 140 thousandths of an inch, so 0.14 inches. So, I mean, that's a pretty robust blade. It's a pretty thick blade for a little guy like that. It's not super thin, super slicey. It does come down to a nice flat grind, so that's cool. It's nice satin finish. That is pretty. It's nice. I love the swedge. I always love that. That kind of swedge is just, to me, it's sharp. Just sharp. Call it almost harpoon, I guess, clip point. Maybe it's a clip, I don't know, modified, whatever. You can call it whatever you want. So there you go. All right, so what's the overall cost of this knife? This knife is listed around $285, I believe. And so $285 puts it in the high end of the regular knife. Definitely pretty nice. The materials, Elmax, titanium, all that stuff, kind of, I can see that. I could see that, you know. Yeah, it would be. A couple of the aesthetics, some of the touches that are on here are what kind of bug me a little bit with that price, right? I feel like there's a few things that if you're going to charge me $280, a couple of finishes that I would like to see. I'd like to see T8s. I'd like to see these corners finished a little off. I would really, really like to see some chamfering cut away here. That would just be so nice. That would really make this knife stand out, right, for me? Because already my finger, just doing this review, the times I've opened it, my fingers are starting to get a little sore. And I don't like that. To me, that's like, again, it's a collection killer. We could have bought it, looked really great in the collection, be all excited, and then next thing you know, after a few carries, you're like, yeah, it's done, it's done. So because I got a chance to check it out in the pass around, I can tell you, if you got bigger, meatier, thicker fingers, this might not be for you. But if those things don't bother you, definitely consider this, okay? The texturing on the titanium is fantastic. So EDC. Absolutely. This would be a small EDC. It's definitely a smaller knife for EDC carry, and I think it would work. The jimping up there could be a nice push cut, right? You could definitely do some work with it. Could you hard use it? You can hard use it like you could with any liner lock, right? I wouldn't go chopping wood. I wouldn't go trying to cut logs with it. No, this is not, use a fixed blade or an axe for that. But yeah, for a liner lock, this could absolutely be EDC. Very nice. Is it a collection piece? Now, if you love Giant Mouse and you love their work and the design of Onzo and all those guys, yeah, I think you're going to love this. I think you're going to say, this is fantastic. This is great. You could absolutely make it a collection piece. I've always liked their look of their knives. The little collection killer nitpicks that just ruin it for me every time. This one has it too. It's kind of a bummer for me. At least for my hands, for my ergonomics, this doesn't work, right? Obviously, there's a lot of people who like these knives. They sell really well. So a lot of people like it. A lot of people, those aren't important. I get it. I get it. But for me, those are my things, right? So, you know, you take that with a grain of salt. Ergos, overall, how do I feel? The handle is great. It's really comfortable. The rounding here is really beautiful if you're just doing that. If you start getting into this corner part, it's a bummer. If you get into like this top part up here, it's a little sharp on the top up here. That can dig in, especially if I'm doing a lot of work pushing down here. See, pushing in here, I can feel those corners after a while. That would rub into my hand if I'm doing a lot of work, like push cuts like that. This opening and closing a lot, it's definitely going to be a problem. Definitely going to be a problem. It's already a problem for me now. So the closing, it's not bad. I mean, it does. Let's see here. The detent is right. You clear the detent right there. No, I did the double clutch there. And it does drop, but it, you know, I would tune it to be a little lighter because it's pretty heavy. The action is great. It's nice and solid, locks up pretty solid. So all that, I think is pretty cool. Getting to the thumb holes is really nice. Does work for a smaller knife, even for bigger hands. So I think that's kind of cool. How about what I think about the overall fidget factor on this knife? The fidget factor on this knife, it has just thumb holes and that's it. Now, can I use a bonus flick? Let's see. Absolutely. So I got the bonus flick. And what I mean by that is I don't have to use the thumb hole. I can just go down here, use my middle finger if I wanted to. So I don't always have to get up real high. I can be down low, you know, like, I'm sorry, now I can't do it. I can be down low and use that, which to me, that's kind of fun. I always like to have multiple options of opening a knife. The thumb hole is going to be the predominant one, and it does work well. It does. It's just the closing. The closing is what gets me. So the fidget factor on this one, because of that, because of the closing and opening, the opening is great, but the closing, I'm going to give it a 2. Yeah, it's going to get a 2. This is going to get a 2. And it's a high 2. It's a 2.3, maybe 2.4, but it's not a 3. It's not a 3. Just not enough fidget factor for me because of that closing. If all I had to do was open it, yeah, it could be a 4, maybe even a 5. But once I have to close it, boy, you knock off some points there. That's just a killer for me. So the fidgety goodness overall, I'm going to give it an 80. For what it has and what it does, I'm going to give it a nice B-. And that's probably being generous. I mean, part of me wants to do a C+, but I'll give it a B- because I look at it for the size of it is. I mean, the Grand would probably do much better because it fit my hand more ergonomically. So, but thinking that it's a smaller knife for smaller hands, I'm going to give it an 80. So it's a B minus. It works, okay? So overall thoughts. Do I recommend this knife? Honestly, no, I don't. And I'll tell you why. But that being said, take it with a grain of salt. If some of these things that I focus on are not important to you, go for it. Get the knife. I think you will enjoy it. If all the other things are the most important and you don't think those matter, and you've had knives from Giant Mouse before and those are things that are there and they don't bother you, then this shouldn't bother you in this one, right? Just take that with a grain of salt. But I will tell you with this knife, these rounded corners kind of kill it. This sharp edge in the back is a small thing. T6s, I can get past if everything else works, right? It is a little small with the thumb hole. It'd be nice if it was just a little bit longer, but it does work. But the big thing that gets me is this right here. I cannot get to that liner lock. That is just absolutely a killer for me. That just is so stinking uncomfortable. And the only way I could get around that is I would have to get a Dremel. I would have to cut that out. It's such a solid block of titanium that it would be, you would have to really chamfer that. And then the problem is the finish on here, you know, it would stand out. And if I could do it in such a way where it didn't really mess this up, maybe it'd be all right. But, you know, you'd want to round it a little bit, right? So there you go. That is my, I can't recommend it. I don't hate it. I'm not absolutely 100% opposed to it. Like, it's terrible. It's going to be what, you know, I don't feel unsafe. It's just small and it's just not comfortable. And after a while, it's going to be uncomfortable. So there you go. You know, that's my thoughts on it. Hey, what do you think? You disagree with me? You think I'm an idiot? You agree? Do you think they're valid points? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below, your comments. If you have questions for the channel, let me know. I'd love to hear from you. I do try to answer all those. And hey, if you found this content fun, interesting, or worthwhile, would you please consider hitting the like button down below? And if you've already hit that like button, please consider subscribing. I would love to have that. For you to like and subscribe to videos, it'd be awesome. Especially you guys who watch the videos, who like, who subscribe, thank you. Big, huge thank you to you guys. And if you've done all that, maybe hit that notification button so you can be notified of future content like this video. And then finally, to all my channel members out there, a big shout out, a big thank you to you guys. You guys have been instrumental being around the channel since the beginning. You allow this channel to do things that it does, and I am very, very humbled by that. It's amazing, and I appreciate you. If it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't be doing a lot of this stuff. So thank you. And if you're on the fence, you said, hey, I'd like to become a channel member, check out the description down below. I have 3 different tiers. And if you just became a channel member, or you decide you want to become a channel member, or you've been a channel member and you haven't asked yet, I do try to give a sticker out to everybody. Just email me with your first name and last name and your address. I will send that out to you. And then also, I do a once-a-month giveaway with the channel members. Just know that as well. And then also the top tier, you do get a special sticker and some special extra perks. So I just want you to know that. So thank you. Thank you if you're considering it. And thank you for those who are. Appreciate you guys. If you haven't already, maybe check me out over on Instagram as well at Robs_nerdy_knives. Again, that's on Instagram at Robs_nerdy_knives. Thanks so much for watching today. Have a great day and a great week. Bye.